Hey everybody, PokerDad here. Just finished up an ACR session, so I just wanted to do another one of these videos where I show my showdown hands. I thought it was a pretty fun idea. I'm gonna show you that on Poker Tracker. It's pretty late actually. It's almost 2. It is 2 a.m. in the morning. I was playing pretty late tonight just because I ended up in a situation where I had a complete whale sitting to the right of me at a table, and I just couldn't stop playing. Of course, with him sitting to the right of me. Great situation. The good old they call it the Jesus seat. But anyway, it didn't work out well for me, and I'll show you what happened towards the end of this video. But anyway, still it's a situation that I got to try and take advantage of. So anyway, let's start off with the hands here. These are all the hands that went to showdown in my session tonight, playing 2 tables at ACR. So here you can see first I start off with Jack Jack in the button, and we get a raise in the caller, and of course now I 3-bet this here, and I go heads up with the cutoff, and here we get a monotone board, ace being out there, not too great for me. We get a check, and I of course am going to check back here with my jacks, and we get a 7 on the board. Really, again, it's an interesting spot now because of the fact that he checked a potential flush and having an ace out there, but he could still, of course, have any ace and check the flush, or just checking out of position, which is perfectly fine and normal too in this spot. He checks again, and of course I check back once again, and a 4 comes out, and he checks, and I check, and he takes the pot. He does have an ace, ace 2, so he checked back 3 times, being out of position. I'm sure he was hoping I would bet, and of course I didn't in that situation. Next hand here, we have 10-7 of clubs. I'm in the big blind, and we get a raise, and I, of course, call it. And I have middle pair here on a paired board as well. I check, of course, out of position, and my opponent checks. And a 6 comes, and again, no reason for me to bet out of position, but when my opponent does bet, I'm going to absolutely call the top pair at this point. And now we get 2 pair, so I'm feeling pretty good about the situation. I decide to bet into him for value, and he does call it, and I take it down. Here I have King Queen, and I of course call from the big blind, and I end up with top pair. My opponent donks into me, and I could have definitely raised it here, but I decided just to call it. I felt like raising it, he probably would just end up folding, and I feel pretty good about my hand here, as only an ace doesn't come out, so I decided just to call it here. Queen comes out, now I got 2 pair, so I'm definitely very happy about this. He bets into me again, and I decide again just to call it, and I could always shove him on the river if I want to do that. 10 does come out, so 10 does make a straight, and an ace jack is definitely possible for his raising range, and with him betting me the way he was, he checks to me here. So now I of course am going to bet my 2 pair. I bet kind of on the light side here, just to kind of induce a potential call. I really actually, now that I think about it, I really think I should have actually bet pot. This was a recreational player with a 54 VPIP, so I think my bet was probably a little bit too small. I think I should have just pot betted, or you know, I think I definitely should have pot bet it, and he did call it, and he actually took it down with a set of tens. But even still, regardless, I really feel like I should have put in a pot size bet there, even if I still was going to lose it. I was betting for value, and I should have bet for max value against a recreational player. Actually, I didn't realize actually any jack got there. It wasn't even just ace jack. It was any jack that would have gotten to the straight. Um, Here I have 3s in the button, and I of course am going to call the open raise from the middle position, and we get a call from the small blind as well and the big blind. So we got a 4-way pot with 3s. Um, so right here, I have 3s. I'm not going to even call a 2 pair because anybody has a pair is 2 pair at this point. Probably is a better 2 pair than me. So we get a check all around, of course, in this spot, and now a 7 comes out. Um, so we have here a gut shot. Plus, of course, we do have a chance for a full house as well. If a 3 can come out, so we got 2 3s that can come out. We have 4 4s that can come out here. Um, and again, we get checking all around, and here comes the 4. So this is a really very interesting spot, um, because the only problem is, and I had thought about this previously, is the 4 does come out. There is a very good possibility uh, that with 4 players in this pot, that somebody could have an 8, and of course, an 8 is going to beat me. So we get a 42-cent bet, and we get 2 folds. And I thought about this, and I'm just, usually, it's really hard to fold. It really is hard to fold a straight. Um, and I really, really thought about it, and I couldn't hit the fold button. And I have fold straights before, and I just couldn't hit the fold button in this one. So I do end up calling it. And as it turns out, he ended up having 4s, and he had a full house. Um, it was one of these situations where I hit the call button, and I knew I shouldn't be hitting it because I knew there was probably a good chance that I was beating his hand. Um, and as I saw, I was. But I was more worried about the 8. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that somebody could have a full house. But you know, either way, I was worried about worried about a hand that was going to beat me, and this hand beat me too. So it doesn't really matter if it was a full house or a better straight. Here I have Ace 10 offsuit, and we check it here, and I do end up with top pair with a kicker, backdoor flush draw as well, and kind of a straight draw too, but not really with the ace being out there. All right, so we get an 11-cent bet, and of course I'm going to call here with top pair, and a queen comes out. So queen makes it interesting because now if my opponent has, this is of course a limped pot. So if my opponent has any queen and he was betting with a queen, he's in really good shape. He could, the chances of him having a better ace than me are not good because we would think that he would probably bet. He probably wouldn't have limped with a better ace. I mean, although it's maybe not. I mean, his VP is 55, but his PFR is 6. But still, we would think that obviously if he had Ace King or Ace Queen, he would have, you know, he would have definitely raised pre-flop, maybe even Ace Jack. Although Ace Jack, I've seen these guys usually limp a lot. Um, so definitely an interesting spot because it's definitely an interesting spot. I check and he checks. So now that he checks, I feel fairly confident he doesn't have a queen, and I feel like I'm definitely probably in a good spot here in his hand, because if he does have an ace, I think he's going to have a worse ace than mine. A2 comes out, so now we have a potential flush on the board as well. I check and he checks, and I take it down my ace. That was a lot of analysis for a lot of checking, but yeah, I did think it was an interesting situation. Here I have 2-3 offsuit, and yeah, this hand. Yeah, I remember this hand. All right, so here I have a gut shot. I check, he bets, and I raise him with the gut shot, which I don't think is a bad play here. I think this actually is a good play. And he calls it. Now the 10 comes out, and I check back, and he checks fine. And the queen comes out, and he checks, and he takes it. Yeah, I don't know why I remember this hand, actually, because I didn't really do anything wrong in this hand, actually. I played this hand perfectly fine, so I'm not worried about it. Uh, Queen 9 here, I bump it up. By the way, I play extremely loose. That's why I'm only playing 2 tables. I'm playing 30% of my hands at these tables. A lot of nitty players, so I'm playing a pretty loose range here. So I'm playing about 30 to 31% of my hands is my VPIP at these tables. So I'm only playing 2 tables. So and you see me opening up with a Queen 9 suited there from the middle position. We get a call from the button, and we go heads up, of course, and I have middle pair with a meh kicker. Meh is MEH, in case you're curious of the spelling. I check it, and my opponent checks back, and we get a 3 here. And, of course, being out of position, we're going to do the checking game. check, check. He bets into me, and of course I'm just going to call with my queen, and not really worried about it, and I do take it down, and as you can see, he bluffed me with 8-5. Thank you. This was a recreational player, so here we get king 9, and let's see, we go 3 ways with the king 9, and I have middle pair and a backdoor flush draw. We'll go check, and now I end up with 3 of a kind. So again, we check here, and now we go to the flop, and I flop a full house, and this was definitely an interesting situation. We get a half pot bet here from the from whatever the hell position he's in. It's 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm sorry. And I remember I thought about this for a while. It's like, all right, well, obviously he's either he's either got a jack or he has or I one. So I guess it was just an easy call, and I take it down. He just bet an ace. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I really thought about it for that long because it was only half pot bet, so it wasn't like I was ever folding it. And maybe I thought about raising it, but I don't see really the point of raising that spot. He's only going to call with a jack. He's never going to call with anything worse than a jack at that point, and I would have lost. So ace queen here, and I was never folding that to that bet size anyway. Ace queen here, so I am going to raise it up in the big blind. This is a player, 54 VPIP player, so recreational player I'm sitting right next to here, and he calls it, and I do get top pair, so this is a good hand for me. Here, and he checks it to me. Of course, I'm going to bet, and he calls it. So I mean, he could definitely be calling. He could definitely have an ace, or possibly have just paired the board any other way as well. So 6 comes out here, and he checks, and I, of course, am going to bet again, and he calls again. So I'm thinking, what the heck is he possibly calling with here? He's a recreational player, so I mean, a recreational player is going to call with any pair. He's a 54 VPIP. He limped into me, then he calls my raise. So it's really hard to put a player like this on any particular range. All you can do is kind of try and hand read it, and so I mean, what's the straight possibility here? 10-8, so maybe he has 10-8 suited. It's quite possible, but you would think a recreational player is probably going to raise me in that spot there because they get so excited with those types of hands. So I really don't feel like I'm in any kind of danger here unless he has a set. And a set is definitely possible. A set of 6s, 7s, or 9s. Definitely not aces, but definitely any of those other 3 potential sets is always a possibility. 2 pairs always a possibility as well. If he could have 9-7, could have 9-6, something like that. So it's really difficult to put him on any kind of a range here. An 8 comes out here, so obviously an 8 is not a great hand for me because it gives him a straight with any 10 and with any 5 that he could possibly have in his hand. And again, he could have you could have pocket 10s, he could have pocket 5s. So I mean, it's definitely a spot where he could definitely have a straight. So he checks, and of course I'm just going to check behind at this point. And he does take it down with a 5, so he had 9-5. So as you can see, he was calling down to 9, and he hits a straight on the river with his 5. So here we got Jack 2 offsuit in the big blind. The good old Jack 2 offsuit hits 2 pair on the flop. I like that. So, of course, I'm going to check here. My opponent checks. Then we get a 7. I check again. He checks. And the king comes out. So now, of course, I'm just going to throw in a pot-sized bet, hoping to get any kind of call. And my opponent calls. He's a recreational player, so a pot-sized bet. Definitely don't mind it. And I take it down. Not really too interesting of a hand. Except the fact that I went with Jack 2 offsuit. Sometimes it happens, Queen 9 offsuit here in the big blind, and we get a call from the button, then we get a call from the big blind, recreational player, and I do hit a bottom pair here on a monotone board. Definitely an interesting spot. So a check comes in. I decided to check behind. I definitely could have bet this here, but he's a short stack. Right, he's a short stack. He's got $1.87 left in. Sometimes you just get these situations. These guys check, and this kind of board, you bet, and then they and then they shove, and I don't want to be in that situation with a short stack. Um, now the eight comes out here, even though it would be an easy fold. It's just I don't want to waste. It's not like I'm have some kind of dominating hand here, and a player like this you're never bluffing over the pot. He's going to be a calling station and call anything anyway. Um, so he bets into me this time. Uh, I'm not so worried about a flush at this point, and players like this are usually going to donk out of position with any pair. So the fact that he didn't donk out of position uh, tells me that it's probably a good chance that he's betting now, probably with an eight. I mean, could he have any nine? Sure, most of his nines probably aren't better than mine anyway, unless he has king nine. We definitely don't think he has ace nine because he would definitely bet ace nine. And the same goes really for a 10. I'm not really too worried about a 10 because he definitely doesn't have ace 10. Because he could have king 10, queen 10. I have a queen, so I'm not too worried about that. So I'm really thinking probably just betting with an 8 here. And you know, I'm obviously just gonna call this bet. The 8 doesn't really scare me too much here. There is also a possibility of a straight too, but that would be a jack 7. I don't really see the jack 7 in play here either. Another 9 comes out, so of course now I'm ecstatic because I have 3 of a kind. My opponent bets it to me again, 25 cents, super weak bet. Uh, let's see, I could definitely raise him. I could definitely raise him here for value. Is it possible that he has pocket eights and he has now a full house? Absolutely. So for that reason, I'm just going to call the bet here and just take it to showdown and expect to win probably most of the time anyway. And of course I do. And as suspected, my opponent had an 8. And here we have ace queen in the small blind. So of course I'm going to definitely 3-bet ace queen offsuit. And we get a call. So I have a gut shot here looking for a 10. Plus I have a backdoor flush draw as well. I check it, my opponent checks, and a 10 comes through. So we do hit the straight. It's good to see. I'm going to check it out of position here with the intention on definitely betting the river. He checks back here. So now this player is a 24-19 reg that I've played 242 hands with. So I decide to actually just give him kind of an enticing bet here. I didn't want to bet him 2/3 pot. A player like this, he's looking at bet sizing. So I gave him a half pot bet just to get a call out of him, and he does call it, and I take it down with my straight. 6-6 here. I raise it up from the small blinds, and I got a pocket pair below what's on the board. Don't love it, of course. I check. My opponent checks back. 2 comes out, so I'm feeling a little bit better about potentially, my sixes. Of course, my opponent could have, he could have definitely, eights or pocket eights, pocket nines. I don't think he has pocket tens. I think the pocket tens usually would probably 3-bet me here. So really, the hands I'm worried about here are potentially pocket nines and pocket eights here. I check. My opponent does bet. So I'm thinking. So with his bet size, I 15. It's, he's betting with the 2. It's quite possible he has eights or nines. But I did decide to to call it here. Even like I don't even think he has. I don't even think he has sevens here. Is he really going to be checking? Is he really going to be checking back a full house? And if he has eights. 8-7 suited, something like that. 9-7 suited, something like that. Do I think he's checking the flop? Probably not. Plus, also he's a 14-9, so he's a super tight player. So, I definitely can't put him on any kind of 7 other than pocket sevens, which would be a full house, and I don't see him playing. I don't see him playing this way. So I call it. And a 10 comes out, and I check, and he does check behind, and I take it down with a 6. So he actually did try and bluff me off of the turn, but that was just a hand reading for me that it didn't seem logical. That really I had to definitely call that bad. Now if I would have checked and he would have bet the river, I definitely would have folded that hand, but he checked back and I took down the hand. Here we have 6-3 suited from the big blinds, and I do check behind. Um, so this is interesting. Uh, oh, this is a waste of. I'm just gonna go through here. It was just check, 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 check. I remember the hand. Nothing to analyze. Let's get to the next hand. I realized there were some interesting hands I left off of here that I got my opponents to fold, but maybe I can find it at the end. There was one cool hand I had. Well, there's some interesting hands. Ace Jack suited, of course, I'm going to 3-bet here from the small blinds, and we get a call. So here I have a backdoor nut flush draw, and of course we have a gut shot as well. So it's a pretty nice hand for me here. I check, and my opponent checks. So if my opponent would bet there, I definitely would have raised it here. And a 10 comes out. I'm going to check, and now my opponent bets. So my opponent is betting when the 10 comes out. So this is definitely an interesting spot here. My opponent definitely would definitely check behind with a 10. And what kind of 10s could he possibly have here? I mean, they're only, we're just thinking that he called my bet. So I mean, I really just think he'd be calling my bet with, ace 10 suited. Because queen 10 suited there's only 2 combos of queen 10 suited, and there's only 2 combos of ace 10 suited that he could possibly have. Jack 10 suited, those are the hands he possibly could have here. But the bottom line is this, I have so many great draws happening here with a straight. I also have a straight flush draw to the nuts. This is definitely an easy hand for me to call here. I'm not folding this hand. A 2 comes out now, and I check, and my opponent checks. So this is actually an interesting spot. No, actually, it's not so interesting. I could have definitely bet here. Because I had a hand later on that I actually overbet, because I knew at this point I had no chance to win the hand and at least try and fight for the pot. But here I didn't decide to do that. I checked, and of course, my opponent didn't take it down. So actually, I won it. All right. So he bet the. It's too bad that there wasn't a flush, right? If there was a flush, that would have came out on the. That was a lot of analysis right there. Right? If there was a flush, that would have came out on the river. Boy, I would have taken his whole stack. That's a shame. All right, so here I get aces from the small blinds, and of course I am going to 3-bet it, and I check off, and my opponent bets 60 cents into me. So about, I guess that's a little bit over two-thirds. That's about a 2/3 pot bet there. And of course, I'm definitely going to call the aces. I could have definitely. You could say I could have raised him here, but I decided to have aces in my check call range here, because I feel like if I would have raised the aces here, there's a very good chance that he would have folded. So I feel like this is a hand that I could probably get some kind of value out of. This is a nitty player. He's an 11-11, so I mean he could have. He called my 3-bet, so he could have kings, he could have queens, he could have jacks, he could even have 10s maybe. So there is definitely a possibility if I raise it here that he can fold, especially if he doesn't have kings. Maybe queens, jack, pocket queens, pocket jacks, pocket 10s are probably folding that here. So I wanted to call just to kind of almost disguise my hand in a way, and also keep him in for potential value because, whatever he has is probably going to be betting here because there's a good chance with him calling my 3-bet that with a nitty player, because we're talking about a nitty player who's an 11-11 player. I don't think he's calling with anything other than a pocket, pocket broadways of some kind. Another 2 comes out, so I don't really think this 2 really changes much. Probably helps me more than it helps him. He does bet into me again here. And just like the last street, I am just going to call the bet here. Now another 2 comes out, And this, this is definitely was a spot that I was not going to check behind because now it's time for me to get some value. Either he's going to fold, either he's going to fold or not fold. So I do decide to shove here with what's the nuts. He definitely doesn't have a two in his hand. The type of player that he is, was not calling my three bet with a two. So I definitely shove here, and I expect him to call with most of his Broadway pocket pairs, and he does call, and he has pocket sevens. So, yeah. So that's interesting that he had pocket sevens. I mean, yeah, I'm really kind of surprised actually. I don't know what to say, but I won, so I guess I'm not too upset. It was a good hand for me. Interesting by pocket sevens. I forgot about that. But still, that doesn't matter because even though that wasn't in the range I gave him, I beat the range that I gave him anyway. So, all right. So, I limp. I end up just limping through here. Recreational player, Jack nine suited, and what happens here? I don't remember this hand. We have an open-ended straight draw here. Okay, so we have an open-ended straight draw here. He bets. I call. I definitely could have raised it here. But I decide, on the turn right now, I'm not really raising on the turn. I'm trying to keep worse hands betting into me possibly on the turn, so I'm not really raising. I don't want worse hands to fold. But this is a spot I could have definitely bluffed the turn. Three comes out, and I decide to bluff the. I decide to bluff the river, and my opponent calls, and of course he wins. So I don't know if that was the right play. I don't know if that was the right play. All right, 9-4 here in the big blind, and of course we're gonna check behind. Someone tells me this is a check fest. Check, 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 check. Yeah. It's 2:30. I'm doing this video because I don't want to do it tomorrow because everybody's asleep now, so I can have a nice quiet video where kids might be shotgun around, tomorrow. So it's all right. I get to sleep in tomorrow. I'll sleep till 10 a.m. in the morning anyway, so I get plenty of sleep. Uh, Here in the wait, how are we? We're in the small blind. We're in the small blind. Oh boy! And I got Jack nine suited, so I decide to three bet here in the small blind with my Jack nine suited, and my opponent calls me. So we have a backdoor flush draw. I check, and my opponent checks behind, and now I have a pair of nines here. Interesting spot when my opponent decides to check behind. So I don't think he has an ace, and I think the fact that some of an ace. I mean, of course, you could have any king, any queen, any queens. Not any, but I mean pocket king, pocket queens, pocket jacks. Blocking a jack though. But he could also possibly have hands like, king queen suited, or queen ten suited, hands like that. Jack ten suited. Some other kind of suited connectors he could possibly have. Maybe he had 8-7 suited or something like that, um, and he decided to call three bets with that. So I check, and now he checks behind again. I mean, it's pretty clear as day. He'd be trying to get value at this point. He's not going to be checking behind. So I'm really not too. This is a situation where I think that my nines very well could be ahead here at this point because it's possible that he has not paired the board at all, and he doesn't have a pocket pair that beats nines here. A 10 comes out, so a 10 is a little bit concerning because he could easily, he could have easily had pocket tens. Although I do really think pocket tens are probably betting on the turn here. Either for value or to take the pot now. So I really don't think that he has pocket tens. He definitely doesn't have ace 10. So only things I really could be worried about here is possibly him having some kind of suited 10. Be it um, queen 10, jack 10, maybe even king 10, some kind of suited 10 like that. So of course I'm not going to bet into him here. I'm going to check, and he checks behind, and I took it down with my nines. Here we have ace six suited. So of course I'm going to raise this here from the cutoff, and I get a 3-bet from the button, and we get 2 folds here, and I decide to actually 4-bet him here at a position with my a6 suited. Flatting here doesn't really make much sense, because my best bet here with a6 suited is to get a fold on the 4-bet. Unfortunately, my opponent does call, so I'm going to be playing out of position with a6 suited. Not too crazy about that, of course. But then I am pretty happy because I get 3 aces. So this is a great spot for me. Obviously, if my opponent flatted me with queens, I'm in trouble. But most times in that spot, a player, especially this guy's a recreational player, he is short stacked, is usually going to shove queens. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm not really too worried even about him having ace king because I'm blocking an ace. Ace king is going to shove. So a lot of these hands that I could lose to would have shoved. So if he's got pocket kings, if he's got pocket jacks, something like that, or he's a recreational player, he could be, calling my 4-bet even with any kind of suited hands. Sometimes even just not suited broadways, So king queen is always a possibility for a hand that he could have. I'm really not too worried here, but since I'm out of position, I am going to check, and he does not bet. So really feeling good about this hand now at this point. The 2 comes out once again. I check, and he bets, and I'm just going to call it here with the intention on shoving his remaining $2 on the river. And you say I probably could have raised him and taken that, and tried to get the rest of the stack. Now I felt the best bet here because I'm not really too worried about my hand. I'm not even worried about a flush. I mean, sure, a flush can beat me right now. But I'm not going to be worried about that to try and protect my range. What I want to do here is get value, and I think my best bet to get value here is by shoving the river. A 7 comes out, and it's great for me, of course. 7 I really could care less about. Not worried about him having, maybe he has pocket sevens. Great. Well, not great, of course, because then you have a full house. But again, I'm really not worried. So I shove him all in. And you know what? If he has something like pocket sevens, congratulations, you won the hand. It doesn't really matter because if I check and he goes all in, I'm calling anyway. So really, they'd make I might as well just bet. I just might as well bet. I don't really see any reason not to do this. I see no reason not to do this because the chance of him having pocket sevens are probably pretty slim. Better chance more that he has something like king queen or something like that, or so he does call, and I don't know what we do. Okay, so he had jacks. All right. And it's interesting because I wonder if he would have shoved me with the jacks. I don't know. So I think that was definitely the right play because he's definitely not folding the jacks, and he's a recreational player too. So here we get queen 4, and I flat in the big blind. And what do we got here? We have a nothing really. It's probably going to be a check, check, check. I think one of these check, check, checks. All right, no reason to analyze. Let's move on. Ace 5 here. I call the cutoffs open, and I have a gut shot if I can get a 2. And we go check, check. 4 comes out. We go check, check. 9 comes out. We go check, check. And I actually take it down with ace high. Whoop-de-doo. Here we get a limp from the okay, so this was like our super crazy recreational player that kept me up late tonight. This is the guy who kept me up late. Okay, so now you get to see him. This is him. Say hello to villain number 22. Villain number 20. So he limps, and I raise it up 17 cents. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I didn't mention in the video also, but I decided because I am opening up with a 30% range now, pretty big range. I am opening up 2.5 big blinds and not and not 3. So in this situation here, I'm doing 2.5 plus 5 cents with the limper. Anyway, I get a call from the crazy fishy guy who is like a freaking 80 VPIP, and I end up with a gut shot. So I check, and he does check behind, which is kind of surprising because this guy was betting like crazy. If he bet, I obviously would have definitely called here. 3 comes out again. We go check, check, and an 8 comes out. Doesn't really help me at all. We go check, check, and I just take it down with ace high. Here I have ace 6 off suits, and I raise it up, and my opponent calls, and I get top pair, meh kicker. So we go check, he bets, and of course I'm definitely going to call with my top pair, even though it's a meh kicker. Not too worried about it. Again, check, bet, and I'm definitely going to call again. And a queen comes, check, check, and I take it down with a better ace. Queen 2 comes out, and this is going to be a limp pot. I end up with top pair here, with a pretty bad kicker. But it's a limp pot, so this we could be dealing with anything here. Of course, I'm not going to be folding top pair in this spot, and so I call. And again, he bets into me. Pot size bet. Pot size bet is definitely interesting, but it's really hard to put him in any kind of range. Just from a hand reading point of view, this guy's a recreational player. He could have paired anything. So I really can't fold here. He could have paired anything. I don't think he has a set. Could he have 2 pair, queen 10, 10, 9? Possible. The 6, am I worried about the 6? Not really. Because he was already betting the flop. And we get a flush out there, and it goes check, check, and I take it down with the king. So he had a 10. So like I said, he's betting some portion of this board, and I don't have to automatically assume he has a queen. These recreational players will bet with any piece of that board, and as you can see, he bet with a 10. Just it's the way it works. It's the way they go. You can definitely just anytime you see a recreational player, you can population read them, and that's just the way they play. And that's why you can stay in with a queen 2 and really not be too worried. And if you lose, well, you lose to it. Here 10-9. This is the super crazy recreational player on this side, and I raise it here, and I get 3-bet here by a 21-17 reg. And crazy guy folds, and of course I am definitely going to call the 3-bet here, even though I'm in a small blind, 10-9 suited. And I got a nice flop for myself. I got an open-ended straight draw. Can't complain about that. So we got a check, and my opponent checks behind. If my opponent would have bet here, I definitely would have raised him as a bluff, but that scenario did not happen. So at this point here, it's pretty interesting when he checks behind. So I think that really takes pocket queens, pocket kings, and pocket aces out of the equation. You could, do I think he's going to try and get sneaky and check behind with those hands? Not really. So kind of interesting. And of course, pocket jacks we could take out of there too, because with a set, he's definitely betting, I think. So sure, he could still have pocket tens. He could have any kind of hand like that. He could have ace king, of course, too. Ace queen, hands like that. Ace jack, I think would bet here. Ace 10 is always possible. Hands like that, any other kind of suited hands. He could always have 2 diamonds, which is always possible. So obviously, I'm not too worried at this point. At least now I could take some hands out of his range that I don't think he has. King comes out, so now we got a flush out here. I still have my open-ended straight draw. Now that he checks back, we know he doesn't have a flush. He's definitely betting a flush here. So now it's just me hoping that I can land a queen or a 7. A 2 comes out, so I don't land neither of those. So this is a spot here where I definitely could have bet out of position as a bluff. But there's always the good possibility that he has a diamond in his hand and he can't fold it. So because of that, I decided just to check, and my opponent does check as well, and he has ace queen. But it would have been interesting to see if he would have folded there. Very interesting. I think maybe if I would have overbet, he would have folded. Something to think about, but again, it's kind of a scary situation there because if he has any diamond, he could definitely call, and all of his diamonds that he would have, if he had ace queen and he had a diamond of one of those, he's never folding that. So that's why I don't think it would be a good bluff. Um, oh, whoops, what happened? Here I have king nine, and I call. I call the button, and I have a gut shot here. So I check, but I check. He checks. Okay, another queen comes out. We go check, check. Four comes out. Check, 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 check. He takes it. Check, 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 check. All right. Here we get king 10, so we get the limper, of course, the recreational crazy player, villain number 20. Remember that. And the button, that schmuck. I hate it every time I'm trying to play here. I'm trying to play versus the recreational player. Can you not call my bet? Well, he does. He calls the bet. He's a 21-17. And recreational player calls as well. I get top pair with an kicker. And recreational player does his little min bet, which is, of course, bull crap. So when he does that and I have top pair, I decide to bet half pot. I don't really want to continue with this 5 here with a spade draw out there. So even though it's not a great top pair, I do decide to bet it here. I mean, I mean, because I could definitely be doing this with something like King Queen also, and my opponents will probably fold. Ace King, they might fold. So I don't hate this play here. And I get a call from the recreational player. So the recreational player, of course, we don't know what the hell kind of range we could possibly put him on. The 8 comes out, but I could think maybe he's got a queen or a king. Could have any queen. Could have a 2. He bets into me again with his little mini 5-cent deal. And so when he does that, I decide again, good chance, I feel good chance because the way he's been betting is, he was betting pretty large at times when he's got his good hands. Keep that in mind when you watch the end of this video. So I decided to throw out a 3/4 pot bet, disregarding his little mini bet, and he calls it. And now we get this spade, possible flush draw out there. At this point here, I don't really see a point of betting again, so I just, call his little bet, and I do take it down. And as you can see, he did have a piece of the board with queens. Let's see, here we got pocket jacks, so I'm going to definitely 3-bet. So if you take a look here, the recreational player who is limping now has upped his game and is now raising first in with a 2x raise. 2x raise? Yeah. So anyway, something like that. Yeah, 2x raise. Anyway, I have jacks here. Of course, I'm going to check. My opponent checks behind, so I can feel pretty good that my jacks are ahead. Check again. He checks, and I check. He checks, and I just take it down. You sing, by the way, on the river, I definitely could have bet into him, but with there being a flush out there now, I didn't really see the point. I didn't really see the point of betting. If he bluffs me, then it's going to be a really frustrating situation. And this guy was like just crazy. He was just clicking buttons. Like it was very obvious he was clicking random buttons, and I didn't want to get stuck in his random button clicking. At least not yet. Here I have King 3 suited. And I get top pair with a pretty crappy kicker. My opponent bets, so I decide to call him. Again, now we get check, check here, which, as I usually like to say, is interesting. So my opponent bet. So at this point, I'm thinking it's quite possible that my opponent might have bet just to kind of get me off the hand. But if I would have looked at his c-bet stat, his c-bet stat is 31%. Now, it's only through 19 hands. So, I could have looked at that and said, all right, well, what's my opponent c-betting me with? He's probably only going to c-bet me here with kings. And something I definitely should have thought about when my opponent then bets into me here. Very small half-pot bet. But because it was a half-pot bet, I could have definitely folded this here. Check, bet, check, bet, check. I bet, check, bet is usually a strong hand. But I did call it here. And as you can see, my opponent had king, queen. So, the fact that it was, he's got a 32% c-bet, Um, I don't know why he checked the turn, but he could have definitely bet the turn. I don't know what he was afraid of, but here I have Ace Queen from the button. This villain number 22 fold. I was kind of upset about that. But I'm so tired when I'm playing this hand too at this point because I just couldn't go to bed while this guy was here. We get a check and I check back and they get another check. This spot here, definitely, I think I should have actually bet that. Check and I just take it down. But I think I could have definitely bet that. But even when he checks this here, I feel like my ace queens are probably always ahead anyway. So I don't think he has any pair. And I feel like that's just I expected to win that with my ace high actually. Here I call the king jack. From the even though we have I could have definitely three bet this here, but I decided just to flat it, and as you can see, nothing really happening. Now I get top pair. I check through, and we get more checking, and I just take it down. Let's see. Here we get 3-3, and I call it, and I think this hand just kind of sucks. Yeah, and my opponent had sevens. I'm really tired. I just want to get to like I'm just gonna kind of flip through these here. I want to get to that hand. Here it is. Okay, so we're here. Oh boy, I apologize. I was playing really great tonight. I was up over 2 buy-ins, and I was playing such an A post-flop game tonight. Such a freaking great A post-flop game tonight. And I fell into the trap at 1:30 in the morning versus crazy recreational villain number 20. Villain number 20. Open raises. 17 cents. Queens, of course, I'm going to 3-bet that. Why wouldn't I? Both these guys fold. And, of course, he calls it. Oh, boy. King, 10. So, my opponent checks. And, of course, I'm going to check behind here. 3. My opponent checks. So, now that he checks, I'm feeling pretty good. He doesn't have aces. He doesn't have a king because I've seen this guy betting. He bets what he has. He bluffed though too. I'm going to tell you also he bluffed a lot. I saw him bluffing, shoving all in on the river with junk. Nothing. Like literally nothing. Terrible bluffs. I mean, this guy, you see here has a stack of 503. There were points the stack was up to like $15. His graph for this entire session was all over the place. All right, so he was betting with. I'm telling you, the guy was literally clicking buttons, and I could not wait to get into a situation with him. And what happens when you're waiting, you're patient to get into a situation with somebody like this? Well, you'll see. So I, of course, decided to bet him here. I bet 2/3 pot. I'm betting for value at this point. I expect him to call it. And he does. Not what I wanted to see. And he shoves. I thought. And I thought. And I thought. And I kept seeing the hands pop into my head when he had nothing. When he literally whipped the board and bluffed with his all-ins. I saw him bluffing with all-ins. I also saw him winning with all-ins. And I think in a situation like this, the proper thing to do is going to be fold. Because if I'm not sure if I have the best hand at that point, I obviously was not sure if I had the best hand because I was totally afraid of him having an ace of any kind. I got to fold. I called. And he had ace 7. Yeah, that happened. And I kicked myself for it, and then I said, okay, I'm done with my session. I was trying to make money off this guy. I failed because I played this hand poorly. And you can't say I didn't play it poorly. Because this was one of these situations where I know I'm beat. Or not even I know I'm beat, but I don't really know what's going on. I don't know. Maybe is it? Did I make the right call? I don't know. You tell me. I can tell you this. I finished up. I finished up, but I finished up under buy-in. I finished up at $4, so I lost $5 in his hand. So, but doesn't matter because overall, except for this last hand, I played a great session. I played a great post-flop game. Now I'm going to bed. Tomorrow I plan on playing some global poker, and I will try and post some live play of global poker. Play versus a bunch of these recreational crazy players tomorrow instead of just the one. Anyway, good night, and until next time, Poker Dad